if you press it. There we go. Otherwise, I just record it. If I press record, it's just me that comes out on the recording. Not as exciting for everybody else.
Yeah. Should we start with a round of introductions, maybe?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'll come on to the slides. We'll do a bit of an introduction to Divya and myself in a minute. But so I'm Sarah. I'm part of the many people in team in Earthwatch, and I do a lot of work with communities, with young people, with schools. And when I'm not running around doing stuff for work, I'm also a scout and explorer leader, and I run an eco club for a school and manage a rugby club, and basically get involved in local activities and local our local nature reserve. So involved in organising discovery days and pond dipping and that kind of thing. So I kind of come with an Earthwatch hat, but also with a kind of a community hat. So I kind of I walk the walk. I kind of do a lot of what we're talking about now. So that's kind of cool. So that's me. Divya?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I mean, you guys all know me, so I'm the one doing all the typing behind the Tiny Forest inbox, and yeah, catering to all your questions and queries. So I'm the community engagement coordinator. So hello, and sorry, my introduction is not as colorful as Sarah's, but
but your background is amazing, Divya, so that's absolutely fine.
Steve, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Steve. I'm from Hinckley in Leicestershire. I'm a tree keeper for the Queen's Park Tiny Forest. I work for Hinckley and Bosworth Borough Council. I'm a horticulturalist and also tree surgeon. And my background is obviously nature and trees and horticulture. But also I volunteer myself out for the Woodland Trust in the winter. I do copsing and hedge laying. And then also I work on behalf of Earthwatch. So yes, that's me.
Brilliant. Very practical. That's what we like to see.
Thank you.
Halinka, do you want to go next?
Oh, my name's Halinka. I'm the custodian of the Lancing West Sussex Tiny Forest, which has only been here a year.
Ooh.
And I'm having a great deal of trouble in interesting local people. Nobody's interested. We've got a local Facebook page, and I've put several calls out on there. So you kept talking to me about weeding, and it was just me. So even though you said it's mindful, I know weeding is mindful. I've got a massive garden, you know. Anyway, so I was in there one day struggling away, and this little girl came up and asked me what I was doing. And now I have Violet helping me, 8-year-old Violet, who comes to help.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And she brought her mum, and we do every Tuesday for half an hour.
Brilliant.
So, but I've recently discovered a plant called yellow rattle.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's going to solve our problem.
Oh, yeah. If that can take root, that will take over first, and then the wildflowers come after that. It's definitely used on a lot of meadows when people are trying to re-establish meadows.
I'm glad you know about that. Yeah, because what we have down here is this really enormous ryegrass. You know, it grows up to 6 foot tall. And this is what's happening in my tiny forest, in our tiny forest. and so this is what we're wrestling with.
Yeah, I'll definitely make notes and make sure our science team has specific answers for your forest.
Well, I think this yellow rattle will sort me out. I'm actually going to buy some myself, unless you're willing to sub me on that, but buy some seeds and sow them. So, but I was interested in trying to get the local people interested. You know, it's quite a blue collar neighborhood, and they're very much about, you know, turning their front gardens into car parks. So
okay, well, hopefully we'll cover some some of those kind of ideas and thoughts as we go through today's session. There was an earlier session we did that was around kind of what kind of events and things that you can do to attract new volunteers, but we'll cover that a bit today as well to kind of pull that in. Towards the end of the session, Alinka, if there's anything else specific that you either just want to kind of throw out there as a, oh, what does everyone else think about this? And there'll be some space to do that at the end as well.
Yeah. I just want to say though, I'm very limited in terms of time to organize events and things like that.
Yeah, but it sounds like what you're most in need of is getting other volunteers. So we'll cover some of that today. Okay.
Exactly. That's why I've come to listen to this.
Perfect.
Perfect. We have Mel. So if she is working and cannot unmute.
Oh,
Well, something's happening. Hi.
I can hear her.
Since you joined us all up with the email addresses, it's really starting to work now that we've got that community and we know what other people are doing. So that's really helped. And we're hoping to have the Wildlife Trust doing one of their sessions at the Tiny Forest next month. But a lot's sort of been going on even by individuals. So we're starting to see a difference with the weeding and everything. So it's all.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Thanks, Mel. So for the ones who missed, so Mel is from the Chippenham Tiny Forest. And we have Monroe joining us from RV Forest in Robertson Street. If you want to say hi.
Aha.
Hello.
Look, he's just like his picture.
I guess that's a good thing. Or yes, consistent. Hello there. How are you doing? I'm sorry I missed the start.
You're live from the doctor's surgery.
Yes, busy day. We've still got thousands of things to do. So.
Oh, thanks. We were just doing the introductions in terms of who we are and the forest that we're from. What I'm going to do is the session I've got prepared today is looking at engaging in inclusive communication. So basically with a remit to get people involved and hopefully give you some thoughts and ideas around that, and also take from you what some of the kind of common challenges or themes are that me and Vieira and the team can kind of go away and think about how else we can support you. So thank you for joining us. As I did say at the beginning, what you did miss, Monroe, was that I'm really appreciative that it's like 4:30 on a really sunny afternoon, and it's kind of 4 o'clock in many worlds, or tea o'clock. So thank you for kind of bearing with us for this session. Okay, right, I will share my screen. So hopefully this will all work magically. There we go. Can everybody see?
Yes, it's still in the, it's in presentation mode now. Good to go.
Is that all good?
Yep.
There's always a bit of a lag, so yes, apologies. I'm based in a hotel room at the moment, on way to a conference, so hopefully the internet will sort of stay with us. So you've already met your delightful team for today, sort of myself and Divya, and I said hopefully we both bring some sort of different approaches and experiences to this mix. Divya's in a great position that she knows a lot of you and knows a lot about the tiny forests, and hopefully what I can bring to this are some kind of different perspectives and some new ideas and some inspiration to kind of help take things forward. So very got 6 points. It looks like we're covering a lot, but hopefully this will be a bit of a whistle stop tour. So what we really wanted you to kind of think about today was when might you use communication about your tiny forest? So what are the opportunities to talk about tiny forests? What methods of communication, tools, approaches might you use? So we can give you some thoughts and ideas, but I'd really like to hear from you guys what kind of experiences you've had so far, which approaches, which ones have worked, which ones haven't. Touch a little bit about Earthwatch and Tiny Forest branding. So hopefully, and you'll see scattered throughout my presentation, I have willfully used all the kind of tiny forest images that I can to kind of give you a flavour of the kind of things that are available to help with your communication activities. I also wanted a little bit about inclusivity. So I think with sort of Tiny Forests, some of you have found it really easy connecting with communities and to get lots of different people involved, and are probably therefore a much better position to think about, well, okay, who's missing, who else do we need to get involved? I equally appreciate some people, it's like, I just need someone, I just need to get somebody involved in the process. So but I want to talk about inclusivity in terms of different approaches that you can use, the different language, the different mechanisms, which can hopefully make the Tiny Forest more accessible to more people, and therefore hopefully get more people involved. I'd also like to, as again, just kind of share ideas and experiences throughout this process. And I'm going to use something called a Jamboard. I'm not sure if people have had a chance to use that. I've posted the link to the Jamboard in the chat. And what I will do is when we get to the next section, I'll have that one as my screen as well, so people can see it as it's happening, to get a sense of going through. So does that sound okay for today? Does that sort of, have I missed anything major that people were expecting to cover, or, you know, was this, was it something completely different you were expecting? Are we all good with that?
Yeah, I see a couple of nodding. Yep.
Nodding
Yes,
is
thank
good.
you.
Okay. I can only see you, Divya, so I'm looking to you for all my inspiration. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing really is just to think about when you might use communications about your tiny forests. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing that, and I am going to find my, there we go. I have the Jam. So if you find the link to the Jamboard, it should look like this, but equally I'm happy to, where are we? Jamboard, that one. So it should look like that if you go into it, and you can kind of add some sort of bits and pieces around it. But it was really just trying to think about, as a group, when is it that you think you're going to need to kind of shout about the tiny forest? What are the kind of opportunities that you will need to sort of share? So you can either add it into Jamboard, or you can drop it into the chat. That's equally fine, whichever works easier for you. So let's think about you, Steve. So when have you needed to? Oh, has the link not come through, Mel? I wonder if it should be at the top of the chat. I'll post it again.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Hopefully you can get to that now, Mel. Okay.
So I can put in
Can
what
you access it?
yeah, I can put in what Steve has commented.
Oh,
into
brilliant.
the
Thank
board.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, that's brilliant. So what Steve's kind of touched on is kind of using the tiny forest as a great opportunity to shout about other kind of environmental things. So again, it's not just about shouting about the forest for the sake of the forest, but it's using it as a great mechanism to get some really good messages out. And what I like about that as well, Steve, is it's about events, isn't it? It's about linking the forest to kind of community related activities. Oh yes, weeding. Yeah, you need to communicate when you need volunteers to do some weeding. That's a definite means of communication for that one. There we go. Anything else? Community literacy, yeah. There we go. So there's definitely things here around publicising events or recruiting volunteers, both generally and to do specific things. Anything else? What else is coming up on that? Fundraising date. Yeah, that's another good one. Both in terms of getting funding from kind of individuals kind of donate to what's going on, but also to try and raise the profile and maybe attract kind of local businesses. I know a few people have been looking at wanting to get things like an additional bench or some more things going on around the forest, and you need to kind of think about how you put things together to promote them, to get funding in. Yeah, getting children involved. So again, that's a different type of activity, a different kind of communication. Either do that kind of through the schools or through other kind of community groups or uniformed groups. That might be another way to get through. There we go. The other thing I guess was thinking, I popped the one in there that talked about the group email, which was just thinking about how do you communicate with volunteers, your little group of volunteers, on an ongoing basis. So not only how do you communicate with them to get them in the first place, but how do you keep them there? What kind of communications might you need to do that?
Simple thing I did, and I'm going to add it quite easy. What I did when I've been down the Tiny Forest in the start of all this, people are obviously intrigued. What am I doing? You know, what's this all about? I used the information board and said there's a QR code there. Scan that. That will take you onto a web page and it'll give you all the information you need. But however, as I've learned the document hierarchy method and learned how it all works with obviously IVN and all that, and obviously done my research into that, I've also given like the sort of talk of how I've gone about looking into it. I sort of pointed them to like educational videos on YouTube. So that's how I did it. But I used the QR code and then I used power of voice mainly for me. And then obviously that all transpired and people said, oh, I'm interested. I said, yeah, well, I'm down here most weekends, come and join me. And that's how it all worked. So speech. That's
perfect. Yeah, you're right. And I think, I mean, Halinka was saying that she's got her 8-year-old volunteer because basically she was visible, she was there, she was doing weeding. And it's about just talking to people about what it is you're doing and why you're there. And that's probably, you're right, that's probably one of the most powerful kind of forms of communication that you can do, is just telling people about what's going on. There we go.
Did also contact the Lancing councillors, 2 Lancing councillors, who said that they would come, but they didn't.
So was that sort of an email or a phone call communication?
Email.
And then,
I emailed them a couple of times, and they said they would come. One's a young guy, and the others, I don't know. They're local councillors who are supposed to be involved in that kind of. I don't know their titles exactly, but they're supposed to be involved in that kind of, you know, the environment. So, but they didn't come. They didn't come, Sarah. I was so disappointed.
I'm not surprised. You see, what you need to do is, are any of them on? Do they need to be getting some good PR for their for their role at the moment?
Yeah,
are they up for re-election? Because that's the other classic. Try and get them out when they're due for re-election.
What they're doing at the moment is getting backhanders to cut trees down from developers. This is what they're doing. It's dire around here.
Gosh, that sounds really frustrating, Halinka.
Yes, it is very frustrating. And we're currently fighting to try and save a poplar tree, a 50-year-old poplar tree. But they've just cut down 36 cypress, what are they, cedar? Are they cedar? Cypress? Is that cedar?
Yeah.
He's nodding his head.
Steve, you're probably your expert on this one.
Yeah.
Not an expert, but I know a bit about trees.
Yeah, 36.
Yeah,
They've just chopped them down in locally. So we're struggling a bit here around here.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of move on. So we've thought about why we might use it. Let me now go thinking about kind of different. There'll be a lag between when this goes to. So if you're going to think about the different methods, tools, and approaches that you can use. It was great looking at that you're kind of like when you might use it, they definitely kind of link up. So I've kind of mapped it out into kind of, I suppose, four areas, and they're generally all about raising either raising awareness or looking for support at the kind of two areas. So firstly, there's around raising the awareness of an event, and that can be, as I like to call it, old school. So that's like literally flyers, leaflets, posters, depending on kind of where things get promoted locally. I know in the town where I live, there's a series of town notice boards, and basically you can give posters to go on that. There's also the whole realm of social media, so website, Facebook groups, Twitter and Instagram. And then there's going through other networks like schools and uniform groups. So they tend to be the kind of main approaches if you want to promote a particular event or activity. The other piece, which I think from Helinka is more important to her at this stage, is thinking about looking for support in terms of volunteers. And there's a kind of a range of tools and approaches that you can use for that. Thinking firstly about accessing existing community networks, so go to where the community you want to work with kind of hang out, and find a way to kind of connect in with them there. Social media is also a good way to promote looking for volunteers. Going through community hubs or community cafes, so thinking about where there is already a sort of community cohesion that you can kind of tap into. Any events or festivals that are coming up. I know that Steve mentioned the Jamboree and as an event and activity. So are there things coming up where you can kind of shine a light on your tiny forest? So be there, have a presence, and do exactly what Steve said, which is like talk about why you do it, what you get out of it, and what they could get out of it. There are other areas. Think about where your tiny forest is and kind of look at what places are around the tiny forest. So have you looked at what places of worship are close to the tiny forest? Is there something that I know there's at least one of the tiny forests where it's one of the tiny forests that we're looking at planting. There is quite a large place of worship close to the forest that doesn't have any green space, and so kind of the conversation and the way to connect in with looking for volunteers from there is to say, well, here's a great sort of thing that we're creating that is on your doorstep. So how might you use it, and how might you get involved? And if people come and use the space, they're more likely to then connect to it and want to help out and do some volunteering. You could also thinking about I've put Doodle polls, email addresses, online form. Just think about other mechanisms that are out there for getting volunteers. Some towns and cities have like a volunteering hub or website, so you can submit details and ask people about, we would like volunteers. You'll need to talk about how often you're looking for volunteers, what kind of work that they might do. But you then become basically part of the database, and people can access you and think about that might be a way that you get people in that way. And also sort of things like comment boxes and drop-in sessions actually translate to maybe on the days that you're out there and doing your weeding or doing your activities, finding literally having a box for people to make comments in and say that they might be interested in coming along. So it's finding opportunities to connect to people who are already there, but also existing community groups, but also existing environmental groups. So they're one of the things that we've tried to do when looking at our tiny forest is to connect in with wildlife trusts or other eco groups that are close to the site. If those connections haven't already been made, they're a really good kind of way forward. And it sounds like, Mel, you've already got the Wildlife Trust lined up for a session, so that's a perfect. So you're accessing different people who have different networks, so you could get other volunteers involved. I guess the other couple of things that I was thinking of in terms of different methods, in terms of communications, would be raising awareness of issues. So make it a story, get into your local newspaper, think about blogs, think about letters to MPs, think about ways that can just raise the profile, not only of the tiny forest, but of the kind of the issues around climate change and biodiversity loss, which our tiny forests are really trying to help resolve. So think about using your tiny forest as a story, as a starting point to kind of raise a whole range of different issues. And then finally, there's the kind of looking for support financial, so local businesses and local community grants. As tree keepers, you are in absolutely the best position to know what is out there to access locally. And one of the things that we're kind of looking to do behind the scenes at the moment is look at what kind of support can we give to tree keepers to help them identify and apply for community grants. So there are quite a lot of small scale grants out there that Earthwatch is too big to apply for and not local enough. So what we're trying to find out are what are the ways that we can do to support you to access those grants, but they need to kind of come from you, and that's about you and your story. And I think it's important to realize that, you know, the reasons why you're involved and the things that motivate you and keep you passionate about this work are the stories that will also raise the profile of the tiny forest. So so I guess one of the sort of the biggest tool, oh no, this is going to be offensive. So one of the biggest tools you can use is yourself. But I don't mean that in an offensive way. It's about you're just in a great position to communicate about what's happening. So yeah, so never underestimate yourselves. So social media is another great way to kind of get out there. There are a number of different mechanisms that you can tap into. So there's the Tiny Forest Tree Keep Facebook group, which is very active, and I love seeing what they keep at it. It's brilliant, and that's a great way for you to communicate to each other. Link, it sounds like you've a local Facebook group, but maybe that's not doing as well as it could do. So maybe that's something we could explore after this session is okay. What is it that will help make a local Facebook more impactful? How, you know, what are the things that we can do in those Facebook groups to try and get more volunteers in? I mean, how many people have you got connecting in with your Facebook group, Palinka?
Well, I've got access to about to the whole neighborhood. We have a local Facebook.
Brilliant. So you're using a local community Facebook group to promote activities about the tiny forest.
Yeah, it's the local residents Facebook page.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
But I haven't had very much interest on there. For example, they came from the tiny forest to do a science day. And I advertised it on the residents' Facebook page. You know, when those two lovely girls came and they showed us how to measure the trees and all this kind of stuff. Nobody came.
Gosh, so I think one of your challenges, Helenka, is you've got a local community, you've got local residents, but at the moment, Tiny Forest, they can't see how they can connect in with the tiny forest. They don't see it as being something for them. Is that that's what it sounds like? Yeah.
Yes,
I guess
well, I think what you said about finding environmental groups, that might be a way to go.
Yeah.
The people that are interested in the first place, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Because I think what that then creates is a sort of is a swell of people, a group of people getting involved, and that feels like a much easier place to then go, right, come on residents, like what is it we're going to do to connect you? If you've already got, if it's not just you, if you've got a group of you working together on it, I think it's a nicer place to start from in terms of getting more people involved. But that might be a thing for you to think about next.
Yes, that's true. Although we are kind of slightly between two towns. but I'll give it a go. You know, I mean,
Yeah, and again, that might be just thinking about you know, opportunities to get people just to come along and just kind of experience the tiny forest. So there's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, I think, sometimes about not having the time to do events or activities, but actually those might be the things that get people in. So they're working with maybe working with some of the more local environmental groups might be a good starting point.
yeah, because when I said that it was very much a blue collar neighborhood, what I really meant was everyone's really working very hard. You know, they're working full time, so
Yeah.
they don't really want to spend their weekend weeding.
No, but I guess maybe if it's not weeding, maybe there is something else. Maybe what you don't know is which of the blue collar workers is actually a secret entomologist, or who's the person who's got, you know, a passion for butterflies, or who is it that actually is your kind of wildflower specialist that you didn't know about. It's finding a way to tap into those people so they can go, oh, okay, yeah, I can see where I fit into it. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So as well as the sort of Facebook group, so there's the Treekeeper Facebook group. There's also obviously community resident Facebook groups that you can tap into. There's also, I don't know whether any of you use Twitter. So Earthwatch has a Twitter account, and we do a lot of promotion of tiny forest activities that way. So that might be something that you can think about promoting locally to try and get people involved. That might be something, Helenka. You don't know again how many of the local residents are sort of secret Twitterers. So maybe there's an opportunity to think about doing some tweets that are specifically about your tiny forest and seeing if there's any take up that way. And then the other area, which is still quite new to me, is Instagram. So I noticed that there's a kind of beginnings of some of the tiny forests to use hashtag tiny forest in Instagram. And I noticed Flume was in there, and there's a few others appearing. So again, it's just thinking about ways to promote what you're doing in different ways that will appeal to different people and different audiences. So yes, that's something you can kind of
Steve has suggested something in the comment as well.
Ooh.
So being outside helps ease stress, increases endorphins, and great for mental health. So yeah, just promoting the mindfulness and of the tiny forest, he says, is also a good way to attract people into the tiny forest as well. Good one.
Yes, I agree, but I think people around here, when they've all got dogs, so when they've got time, they do go outside and walk around with their dogs. But yeah, that's the way they relieve their stress and things. Thank you for that, Stephen.
Brilliant, thank you. I just wanted to also share, so sometimes just getting information about the tiny forest out in both kind of national and local newspapers can be really helpful, because if you particularly, I'm thinking, looking at here, so the Oxford Mail, tiny forest in Oxford, what it does is it raises the profile, so the next time somebody walks past that strange little woodland thing with that plaque on the outside, they can actually go, oh, that's the tiny forest. So again, it's just it's raising it on people's sort of profile, so that when they do pass you and they'll see Helenka weeding, or they'll see Steve out there doing some tree maintenance at the site, they'll kind of go, oh, is this the tiny forest then? And then that's a great sort of way in to conversation, really, to be able to kind of take it to the next one.
Where is this image?
Which image, sorry?
The one you're currently showing, press media coverage.
I don't know.
I think she meant links for these newspaper articles. Is that what you mean?
No, not the newspaper articles, just that image with all the newspapers on it, because that would be a really useful thing to put on the Facebook page, you know, an image like that. Maybe I'll
okay, we can do that. Yeah.
Hang on, I'll just photograph it and then I can just stick it up.
I can share the image with you, Helenka, then it's but that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Could you? Because
Yeah.
I think that would be, you know, that would make them think it's not just, you know, not just here where they can see it, and you know, that they're doing it all over the country, and
Yeah.
you know.
And it sounds like that would be really helpful for the audience that you're trying to kind of tap into locally. It's like, come on,
yeah,
this is a tiny forest. Look, it's part of something big, and you could also get involved. And then building on what sort of Steve said is like, although it'd be great if you could all come and do some weeding, I think that what you might need to think is, well, before they do weeding, first of all, they've got to kind of visit and experience the tiny forest and see what it's like. And the more that opportunities for people to come out and actually discover it may then lead to more people getting involved in doing some of the weeding.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can
yeah.
after this session, I can share this slide. So you
oh, please share it with me, because I think you're absolutely right. You can't just, I mean, I never really did that, you know, just ask people to come and weed, because they just think no way, you know. Yeah, you've just got to get their interest in the first place. And show them that they're doing it all around the world, all around Britain. Well, there's one in Holland, isn't there?
Well, there's quite a few in Holland, yeah.
We have another suggestion from Mel. So she says that we can even get back to the people who originally planted the trees to see, you know, invite them to come how the trees are doing, and in the process, you know, get them to volunteer and engage with the forest better. Just amazing idea too.
Yeah.
Who, the people that planted them?
Yeah.
What, the men that came here to plant them?
I said some of the challenges obviously were that some of the tiny forests that were planted during COVID were planted by contractors, so it's not quite as easy. And I think that's definitely, you know, it's a lesson learned. I mean, we wanted to get them in the ground so that we could actually, so they could start growing, so we could show people what tiny forests are like. But if you lose people, if you don't get people connected early on, it's really hard to then start kind of pulling in interest. So you need at least a few of those kind of people brought into it at the beginning. So I absolutely appreciate that, Helenka. It's a challenge, and it's something that we are, you know, hopefully with, you know, COVID moving on and all that, we shouldn't have that issue going forward.
Right.
Okay, let me just stop sharing for a minute. I just want to make sure that on the Jamboard we've got there we go. So on the Jamboard, on the second page of the Jamboard, is just about sort of methods, tools, approaches that you can use for talking about. And I just wondered at this point whether anyone else wanted to share anything particular that they had used, so some personal experience of what they'd used in order to kind of either recruit volunteers or to raise awareness of an event. It's really practically, what did you do in terms of kind of communicating the forest and how to get involved?
Do you want to share the Jamboard on the screen, Sarah?
Yeah, I can do that. Is that going to be easier?
Yeah, just for the ones who can't use the link.
Yeah. There we go. That one. Oh, hold on. Dun, dun, dun. I'm multitasking. I've got.
Yeah, we still can make out the question, so that should be
no,
fine.
No, that's fine. Let me get rid of this and then. Dun, dun, dun. Cancel. Go away a minute, and that one. What I want. Ta-da! There we go.
Yeah, perfect.
Brilliant. So yeah, so just thinking about what examples of things that you've used to communicate. Brilliant. So Facebook. I guess it depends on how established groups are, but has anybody got like a sort of a local group WhatsApp groups that they share info about activities or events. I know there's a few of the slightly more established groups have got little WhatsApp groups that they kind of will ping out like requests for, like, we need weeding, or has anybody, you know, or if anybody then sees any damage or anything at the site, they can kind of share it within the group. That can be quite useful.
Yeah, I think one of the tricky situation here is the GDPR. So I'm not able to link all the tree keepers together using their email ID unless I get explicit consent from everyone.
Yeah.
So
but I think
wherever
at a local level, I think it works. If you,
Yeah.
particularly if you're in a local community, you just set up your own WhatsApp group and share information that way.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. What else have we got?
Let's have a comment from Steve that I'll just paste it in a bit.
I mean, has anybody been brave enough to do a sort of local press release and
Yeah, I did it because I work for Hinckley and Bosworth Borough Council, so I have a good standing in within the council anyway as a horticulturalist for them. So obviously I'm planting there, got Hinckley Times down, also got local radio on board, and then also got the schools on board, got 2 schools on board, and that's how I got myself into teaching, well, going to the schools and giving talks and using my children as the little messengers, shall we say, for their friends.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a lot that we've learned at Earthwatch in terms of kind of going in, doing session with schools and then actively giving them things to tell their parents.
The big one was Earth Day. The big one was Earth Day because I supplied a lot of colouring templates, a lot of eco bird feeding, making like bird feeders, making them out of all our natural ingredients and that. And also, like I say, getting people to come down and just visit, and like I say, people walking by and saying, come and see what this is all about. Come and have a sit down and do some pictures, do some colouring and see what you can find. And then talking through what the names of the trees were, what the origins are, how long the trees live for, what these weeds are that are growing through, and what they do to feed, and what insects will eat certain weeds and eat certain foliage. So I use my experience from, let's say, horticulture mainly.
No, that's perfect. And what that's doing is kind of using kind of different methods to kind of shout about activities and events, and then at the actual event themselves just talking about it and just kind of sharing your kind of your passion and enthusiasm. That's perfect. Brilliant. Has anybody had, I'm thinking particularly in terms of kind of looking for volunteers, are there any kind of local volunteer networks that any of you have kind of linked to or worked out? I know each town, city, county is quite different in terms of their approach to volunteers and volunteering, but I just wondered have you had experience of that, Steve?
Yes, well, as I work for the Woodland Trust as a volunteer for like one of their woods, and I did like the copsing and hedge laying. That was a good networking tool as well. And they got people to come and visit and see what this is all about, because I'd never heard of the myoacting method, and they were like, "Oh, this ain't traditional tree planting. This is all dense planting." And I was trying to educate them through like how it was all done, and then obviously like the Indian guy Shubindu, and then obviously Dan and IVN in Holland and all that, and give them the whole like rundown of how it all come about and the methods and the science behind it. And obviously talking about the mycorrhiza network and the fungus networks and how they all intertwine, how they all communicate to each other. And it changed their perspective. They went home and did the research and come back to me and went, "You're right." I said, "Told you."
That's perfect. And that's great. So that's about, you know, looking at other groups or networks that you're involved with and telling them about the tiny forest and sort of bringing them over to the light side or the dark side, or whichever way that is that the tiny forest is. I guess it depends on how high the trees are. That's brilliant. Yeah, flyers on local notice boards. Some of them just can be really simple things, like letting people know that that there are things going on. Steve mentioned it, but in terms of the kind of the notice boards for some of the other tiny forests, do you know how well the kind of QR code is used? And actually, that's a question probably for you as well, Divya, is do we know how many people access information through QR codes? Is that a bit of magic that we can ever work out, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think we'll have to check with the IT, because we should be able to figure out where the traffic is coming from.
I was just going to say, through IT, you can see how many people have in that month or that period have come to your website and clicks. So
like saying
like the the clicking and like say how many times
Yeah,
people
be
have clicked on an
interesting
ad
to,
or
yeah, to see about the use of the QR code. But
Yeah, but we
but
also
that's
have a link as well at the bottom, I guess.
Mhm.
So if they're not
Mm.
able to access the QR code, they can still type in a bit.ly link.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to make it a little more accessible, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. That's brilliant. Okay, then I'm just going to stop showing that one, and I'm going to just go back to my next slide. And current slide. Share my screen. Dun. That one. Share. And current slide.
Yep.
Anytime machine. Come on. There we go. Brilliant. Oh, gone. So in terms of the communications, marketing, promotion activities, bits and pieces that you can do, I just wanted to take this opportunity to make sure that you were kind of aware of the various Earthwatch and Tiny Forest branding that is out there that you can use, that can help you in sort of promoting the activity. Alinka, I think, you know, in terms of your communication with the local residents near you, it's about, I suppose, anything with branding tends to give a bit more kudos, a bit more validity about the fact that this is part of a bigger thing, and that we've got a whole range of kind of images, logos, assets, which are basically pictures, kind of photo images, and a slide deck that you can use to help promote the Tiny Forest yourself. There's a sort of set of guidelines that go with both of them. So just in terms of keeping the branding and the images consistent, but they are all there for you to access and to use to help you. If any of you are sort of particularly good at design work, things like Canva, you can access some of our logos and use those to create your own marvelous masterpieces for kind of flyers and posters. So yeah, so there's guidelines in terms of the different logos and how you use them. There's a slide deck that talks about where Tiny Forests come from. Although Steve, I think you've got it nailed. I think you could do it all without a slide deck. But sometimes just being able to kind of go into either a school or a local group and just talk a bit about them. And there's a slide deck that you can use and access to kind of help you talk about it.
Steve is also suggesting wearing branded Earthwatch merchandise.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. What you need to say, Steve, is we need to get free t-shirts to tree keepers. That's what you need to work on, Divya, and say.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
The way forward.
Let's ask for the fundraising team. Get us more.
Yeah,
money.
absolutely. Actually, thinking about it, whilst we're on the kind of t-shirts, because I think that's really important, because it's about being visible where you are. Are there any other particular items, branded items, that you think would be helpful in terms of being out and about?
Yes. Do you know, like them rubber bracelets that you could wear, that you have them for, like, obviously like poppy appeal and all that. Kids can wear them with all different colours, aren't they?
Mm.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, sorry, I interrupted you. Please go on.
No, it's all right, carry on.
I was also thinking about like badges that say I'm a tree keeper or something, just like a
branded
could be a conversation starter. If
that's an idea. Yeah.
So that's something that we're working on. Hopefully we'll try to get some funds for that and send it around as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, again, if there's anything that you kind of think of after this meeting, you think, oh, actually, these are the kind of branded items that would be interested. As Divya said, we can kind of put together our wish list and send our fundraising team out to get them. Okay, so one thing that I'm aware that we've got 7 minutes left, so these hours go really quickly. I just wanted to take a moment just to think about kind of inclusivity, and I think, you know, I am really aware that each of the tiny forests are at very different stages in terms of engaging volunteers, and in some cases you just want any volunteer because you need some support, But I think one of the things that I think is really useful to think about is how inclusive not only are your communications, but also your activities and your event. Because the more inclusive you can be, the more people who can potentially get involved, and the more people that can benefit from a tiny forest. So when you're thinking about all those who are involved with your group, so like who's on the tree keeper board, your panel of committed tree keepers, you know, who's in the mix, you know, who is it that kind of will come out and help volunteer when you send out your requests. And then think about who's missing. So think about where your tiny forest is located and all the people that are around and could potentially have access to that tiny forest, and think about who isn't there. And then you begin to think about, you know, so why? So how are you communicating about events, about volunteering opportunities, about benefits of a tiny forest? So different audiences will need different approaches. And I like the way, or we've kind of already talked about with Alinka, is that there's a mindset within her local community of people with, you know, who haven't got time to kind of get involved. So actually what you then need to think about is, well, you know, what would get them involved? What are the things that would, you know, potentially get them interested and engaged? And that could be, like Steve suggested, that the kind of the health and well-being benefits, but it could also be, it would be interesting to, you know, to post some pictures on the local residents group of either plants or insects or species that have been seen on the tiny forest, and see if that gets a reaction. Because again, you might have those entomologists or those real kind of wildflower gurus who are kind of hiding behind their blue shirts, you know, might actually get out and involved. And then think about the kind of events that you're trying to encourage people to come to and how inclusive they are. And I think one of the challenges with that is also on your time and your availability, because obviously you're going to run events and activities at times that work for you. But quite often where I live, what I've found is if you're just going to be running events that are like during the day midweek, you are generally appealing to a kind of you know, a group of retired individuals who've got the time and energy to do that. You could do things during the day, during the week, that were a bit more kind of fun and hands-on, that you would then get some more of the, maybe the young parents with young children might come along to that. If you're interested in tapping into people who generally work 9 to 5, you need to think a bit about potential weekends or early evenings. But also, and I think Linka talked about it earlier, was that, you know, if they're going to give up their free time to do that thing, what is it that you're going to offer them to get involved in? So why would they want to get involved again? So one of the things that I would kind of encourage you to do when you're looking at like who's involved and which kind of volunteers are getting involved and what activities they're doing, how could you get more people, who's missing, and do you need to think about different types of activities or different communication mechanisms that would help you get more people involved. And you know, we're all kind of learning about this at the same time. Every group is different, so there isn't, sadly I can't give you a like, here's a list of things you will do for your site and it will make everything work. But what hopefully we are providing you are a kind of a suite of ideas and activities that hopefully a combination of them will enable you to engage the kind of the broadest number of people involved in that. What was my next one? There we go. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And I think one of the things that we're going to be encouraging all the tree keepers to do over the next sort of 6 months or so is to really share experiences of what worked, what hasn't worked, so that we can share that kind of knowledge and expertise within the group. As I said, not everything will work for every site, but I think just hearing about other people's successes and challenges is really helpful for you as a tree keeper to know what's going on in your own forest and think about ideas. I think, let me just think about the Jamboard if there's anything else. And I think the final thing really was just to ask whether there was any particular sort of good, bad, challenging, really successful, really empowering things that have happened in terms of either recruiting volunteers or promoting events that you wanted to share.
So yeah, Monroe, I think had
Has
to
gone.
leave a little early,
Yeah.
but he said he was happy picking up some
Yeah.
interesting themes.
Good. Yeah. So yeah, whether there was anything else anybody particularly wanted to share in terms of experiences that they'd had. And I think we'll continue to do this throughout the kind of life of the Tiny Forest. So I think the more experiences that people can share, the more ideas that we can bring together as part of the mix.
I think the biggest one for me was Earth Day this year in April. That was
Yeah.
the big one, because I posted pictures on that and I got a lot of interest, and a lot of people got them, went to school, give a whole talk on Earth Day and sustainability for the future. Talked about you're leading the way, you're the next generation, it's all up to you sort of thing, but also let's do our part now. As we've got like carbon neutral and then we've got net zero by 2050, we need to sort of work towards the bigger picture, and that's what I'm trying to illustrate. We can do little things just by simply turning electricity plugs off, you know, turning taps off, make sure any drips are being fixed, all sorts, picking up litter if we've got time, just do a little bit of litter picking around the park and all that. And that's what I've done, and drilled it into kids and saying ultimately this is what we can do to help, and we can do simple things, just plant wildflower areas, you know, pollinators, you know, trying to get more kids outside, get them in nature, not stuck behind a computer screen all day, get them outside on the bike around the park, you know, get them to say, what's that over there? Well, come and have a look, I'll talk you through it. And that's my success, really.
And it's absolutely brilliant, Steve, that you've got the kind of time and the energy to kind of really put into this. Just kind of out of interest, so from Steve, Mel and Helenka, and you may know the answers, so apologies if I'm kind of overshooting it, but it's just that how many other tree keepers are there in the three forests that you're working with? So you've got three others.
I've got three.
Yeah. Helenka?
Helenka, I mean, I have two others registered tree keepers, but they're not very active. And
oh, you're on mute, Helenka. Sorry.
Jeff Patmore, I think he's about he's 80, but he's very dynamic, but he's currently looking after his grandchildren because his children are working as teachers. So he's not available. And who that Christopher is, I have no idea. I've never met him. Don't know who he is. I've emailed him. I've CC'd him into the emails, but never had a reaction. And I've even said, you know, Christopher, yeah, interested? Nothing. So unfortunately, Jeff can't come. No. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I think again, it's just really kind of helpful have more than one of you, and to have a group of you that are kind of committed to it, so you can support each other and you can encourage each other to get involved. And I know Divya works tirelessly and ceaselessly behind the scenes trying to get more tree keepers involved, but yeah, I can hear your frustration, Helenka, and I can definitely see the value in having.
Well, the thing is, it's quite a large area if you think about it, and as I say, I've been, you know, there's no way I can read it. You know, you keep saying, no, oh, reading is mindful, and you know, I just
your mind is now full of reading. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. And how about you, Mel? How many tree keepers are you hang out with?
Well, I've never met them yet. Ooh. So we're meeting on a Friday afternoon soon.
Oh, that's exciting.
Ours was only planted in February. Okay. And I did go along to the council. I don't know if this is something for Helenka, and say that they'd sort of sponsored this forest, but then they weren't doing anything to look after it and that, and so sort of put it a bit back on them, and then it seems to have come together and that through Divya and that, and joining us together. So
Oh, that's
maybe
a good news.
another-
Oh, that sounds good. Well, as I
Mm.
said, I did contact 2 councillors, and
But go to the leader of the council.
yeah, okay,
Just go big, go
It
big and go
works.
high.
okay, I'll go big. Although Jeff, who used to be a councillor, Jeff Patmore, who's another of the invisible tree keepers, he recommended this Mike Mendoza, and he didn't show up. But yeah, I will go big. I don't know.
I mean, the
It
other
works for
thing,
me.
Allegra, if it helps, is if you let us know the contact details, we can always send an email from Earthwatch, and if that is an extra kind of incentive.
Oh yes, now that would be good. And also what I was saying about that image with all the newspapers, because the people around here do still read newspapers, and just putting that on the local Facebook page, it would impress them. You know, they would maybe think twice about coming. I mean, everyone knows about it because they walk their dogs around the park, and it's like bang in the corner of the park there, and you know, but
A picture as well showing the trees being strangled by the weeds, and that really sort of shows as well to the council.
Shows the need.
Mel, you sound like you know how to torture them quite. You
Need
said you would do
must.
this. Yeah, bit of emotional blackmail, maybe. Yeah, strangled trees, poor trees.
All nicely.
Yeah, well, I mean, the trees are doing quite okay considering. There's just occasionally, you know, when the foxes walk through and a tree's in their way, they will just snap it off. You know, they just think, right, yeah, get rid of that. But in fact, they're all looking pretty good.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, despite everything or nothing, you know.
Single-handedly weeding your way through the tiny forest, Linker, it's very impressive.
I'd just been out there just before I came to listen to your webinar. I was just out there, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for giving up an hour of your afternoon. I will, following today, I will let Divya have a copy of the slides, so you've got those to refer back to, and I will keep Jamboard open, so if you have any other kind of thoughts and ideas, and we'll send the link to that in the email as well, if there's anything else you want to add to it, and then we'll share the results of that as well. So the idea behind the sort of the community focused webinars was to basically support you guys to do what you do. You already do an amazing job, and hopefully this is to give you some more ideas and inspiration about things to do. So I think there's another session planned in July, and that will be looking at gosh, I can't remember what the next one is, Divya. What we're looking at next.
That up.
The next one is building inclusive communities. So again, it's thinking about, I really want to explore how you engage the communities and how you engage diverse communities, and that's, again, it's an area that we're really trying to focus on, particularly with Tiny Forest going forward, is around ensuring that everyone has access to a tiny forest. And so we're really keen to explore with you, with tree keepers, about your experience, so that we can help make that inclusive approach something that is kind of second nature to everyone, and to really learn from again, some of the successes that have happened already. So thank you for that.
And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you for
That's
having
right.
me.
Enjoy the sunshine. Go
yes.
for a nice
Thank
walk around a tiny forest. You'll be fine.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Take
Thank
care, guys.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.